Many people believe that it is the will or the executor that determines who gets the IRA, and that is just not the case. So in this video, I will be breaking down the beneficiary designations such as a spouse, a minor child, or other non-spouse beneficiaries. I'll also discuss the role of the executor as needed when it comes to an IRA. Just know that the executor or the will does not override the beneficiary designation that is signed and dated by the client. First, let's start with the surviving spouse. They are in a very unique position, whereas IRS allows them to step into the shoes of the original account holder and take those assets as their own, which means that they can do a spousal transfer from the decedent's IRA into their own IRA and treat it as their own. The other option that IRS gives the surviving spouse, and this is only for the surviving spouse, is where they can move the assets into an inherited IRA and then roll those funds from an inherited IRA into their own IRA. That usually comes into play when the surviving spouse is under 59 and a half and may need to use some of those funds for whatever. That would allow the surviving spouse in the inherited IRA to take a distribution, still paying taxes on those dollar amounts, but will not have that early withdrawal penalty fee of 10% because death is a penalty exception. Once the surviving spouse turns 59 and a half, that's where I would normally see the rollover occur. Another thing that the surviving spouse can do while those funds are in the inherited IRA, they can take distributions out based on their single life expectancy, or they can delay taking distributions until the decedent would have reached their required beginning age, which as of 2026 is age 73. So IRS does give a lot of favorable treatment to the surviving spouse when they inherit an IRA. Let's talk about the options for a minor child. Now, the minor child gets this option if they are the minor child of the decedent. They can move the assets into a custodial inherited IRA that would be managed by an adult. They can also take out distributions based on the minor's single life expectancy. Now, once the minor becomes an adult, based on that particular state's age of majority, whether it's 18 or 21, then that inherited IRA becomes their own IRA. No longer custodial inherited IRA in this case. Once that happens, that is when they are required to take out the remaining assets in that IRA within the 10 years. So it gives them more of an advantage. It allows them to take out smaller distributions over time, and then when the assets become their own, that is when they have to be depleted within the 10 years once they receive the IRA as an adult. Now let's talk about any other beneficiaries. For instance, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, niece. They have the option of moving the assets into an inherited IRA, and once it goes into that inherited IRA, they have to have the account depleted within 10 years from the account holder's passing. They don't give the option to assume the assets as their own. They can take out distributions over time, but it has to be depleted within 10 years from the account holder's passing. And all of this is because of the Secure Act of 2020. Now, let's talk about the role of the executor. So we know that the executor does not determine the beneficiaries on an IRA, but this is where the executor steps in. The executor steps in when there are no beneficiaries named on the decedent's beneficiary form, or if the decedent actually named the estate as the beneficiary. The executor steps in with their letters of appointment from the court confirming that they can act on behalf of the estate. The assets are moved into an inherited IRA for the estate, and then the executor distributes that to the beneficiaries of the estate. And that is pretty much where it stops. Once the beneficiaries of the estate receive their funds, they do not have the option to move those assets into an inherited IRA. So in closing, it is your signed and dated beneficiary form that determines who gets your IRA and not your will. Check all of your beneficiary designations across all of your accounts. Make sure they're up to date. Come back to my channel, subscribe for more as I break down these rules to help you understand, because your money always matters.